Hello, friends of the torture chamber. People who want to learn the German language. Today we're talking about tools I actually use to learn languages other than German, as in easy languages. And we're specifically talking offline tools, like flashcards. Oh yeah, they're from Muji. Do you know Muji? It's a pretty cool shop. Like if you have a Muji in your area, you can get those there. And I use them to actually learn Farsi, or Persian, as some call it. So I had several semesters of Farsi in university, and we had this book. This is it, Lehrbuch der persischen Sprache. And by the example of this book, I want to explain to you what I think a good textbook is and how to find one, and how to find out whether or not you're more of a textbook learner or an app learner. First of all, I want to say, if you are the kind of person that has a problem with motivation, maybe you have ADHD, or you have some other issue, maybe you're a little bit depressed, maybe you're a refugee, you just came out of your home country, and you just have a lot of awful things on your mind. You're having a hard time concentrating on just learning the language, and it's just a lot of extra stress for you. You're maybe better off with an app than a textbook, because a textbook needs a lot of dedication. On the other hand, if you want to save yourself some money, well, a textbook could be the easier option, as you can get textbooks for free from the library. And there are a lot of online pages where you can buy used textbooks for €3 or something. Like, they're really cheap. So, why do I like this textbook that I had in my Persian or Farsi class? Well, it is very systematic and very interactive. It starts with very easy words, introducing just normal things to say, as in hello and so on, and how to introduce yourself, how to ask how somebody is, salam, citori, that kind of thing. And it has a lot of exercises, as you can see. There you can fill out stuff, you can copy that, and they also have materials for the teachers. And if you go to a German class, of course you have to take the textbook that they use. But if you want to learn by yourself, if you have it in you, then I recommend finding a book that has a lot of exercises and solutions, so you can look that up. And I would also recommend a book that includes a CD or DVD like this one, so you can practice listening comprehension, which is very important when a language is still totally foreign to you. So that is why I think Farsi, in my case, is just a really good example, because when I was starting to learn Farsi, I had no help by anybody else. I only had my Farsi teacher, and I basically had to learn that at home. Even if you go to a language class, as you might know, if you do, you need to put in the work at home way more than in class. Otherwise, you will just be left behind by your classmates, and the class at some point, language classes have it in them, they always take off at some point, and then you're like, what is happening? Am I too slow? Yeah, you are too slow. You need to put in a lot of work, and you need to put it in early. Anyway, so additional to this book, what I think is a really good addition here, this book is flawed, it's not perfect. There are mistakes in there, and I know Persian speakers right now that help me, I don't have that problem. But just as an example, this is a book called Grundwortschatz Persisch, which means basic vocabulary Persian. And the nice thing about it, and it's something I think you should look for when you're looking for a really good book to learn phrases, normal phrases that are used in everyday life, is like, look at all of these, like pages over pages over pages over pages are examples of idioms and normal things normal people say, because that has been a big point of criticism for this book from my classmates. Some of them went to this Persian class just to learn how to write Persian, because when people are like the second generation of an immigrant family, they often have the problem that they don't learn how to write the language if the language has a separate alphabet, which Persian has. So there were a bunch of native speakers, they just couldn't write Farsi. And they said like, well, this sounds like people speaking in this book, that it sounds like a news reporter, it sounds unnatural and stuff like that. And that's true, but that is something that is also very normal. So if you find a book and a native speaker tells you, well, this isn't a good book, it sounds like a newspaper, or it sounds very stiff, well, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a shitty book. It's more of a question like, how big is your vocabulary going to be after being done with that book? How comprehensive is that book? How many situations does it cover? As in life, because when you get a good foundation, you will be able to adapt your language, make it sound more colloquial and more chill over time. That is not something to worry about in A2 level or up to B1 level. Worry about the basics, worry about getting in the vocabulary, preferably by learning real phrases. So if you find a German book that contains real phrases, like this one, buy it. Now, this is one of my favorite French books. It's from Pons. Pons is a very popular publisher here in Germany. I had a lot of their books. I think they also even make school books, but I'm not sure if they're still in use, but it's a very popular. This also has CDs, which is very good because you can listen and practice your listening comprehension. And what I like about this book is that it is so systematic. Just look at how systematic it is. There are always like numbers. It's not boring. And that is something I think is also very important about a book. It should never bore you. It should never be like a chore to learn a language. If you find that, maybe you should try an app, because like apps are a bit superficial. You will not get enough grammar when you just use an app. You will need an extra grammar book, okay? You will need verb tables or something like that just to make that memory of the vocabulary more solid and profound, and to get to that active vocabulary. Because in the beginning, you're gonna understand a lot more than you are able to say, and to bring that passive vocabulary that is stored in the back of your head to the surface, you need to be very, very used to the language. You need to immerse yourself in the language, but you also need to think about the language. And this ability to think about languages is usually better developed in bilingual people. So if you're bilingual, you already have a little bit of a starting advantage here. But, just be aware of that. As soon as you start thinking about the language, not theorizing and obsessing and building sentences all the time, but just when you hear a word, someone says something, you understand it, it pops up, and immediately you associate things with it. That's when you're on the right path. Now, do I recommend using flashcards though? I'm really divided on this. Because on one hand, I think if you can, yes. It's better than an app. It is more something you touch. It has feedback. You can arrange it. It's an object. And learning with real objects is always better than with it's not the same for your brain. Like if I take this landscape and I explain how all the little parts, what you would say to all the little parts, like this imprint here of the Sony brand text, I would explain to you what this is called in German. And I would do it like 10 times. You would probably remember that better in comparison to if you just watched a video. If we talk about this, we're in the workplace maybe or something, and you can touch it and you can ask like, oh, what is this? And oh, there's this little, little lever. No, that's not the word. See, I don't know this in English, but you would be able to remember that better as compared to something that you cannot touch and hold in your hand. And even if it's just writing something, that is also more rich information than clicking. So be aware of that. And if you have a hard time learning with a digital product, then maybe consider getting flashcards. And you can simplify that by only using them for idioms and for fixed phrases or for sentences. I never learn vocabulary. I can't. It's not something I'm able to do. I've not learned a single word in my life by this classic studying of vocabulary, like writing down a list of words and then learning them by heart. I can't do it. I don't know how people do it. I think it's insane. But what I do is when I'm at the point that I'm, let's say, A1, A2 level in a language, then I start writing down sentences. And what I do is that I usually ask a friend who speaks the language, hey, could you have a look over this page of sentences that I have? Do you find any mistakes? Would you help me with that? And then I sponsor them a coffee or something. I think it's really helpful if you find a language buddy like that, and then they help you look at the sentences that you build and say like, oh no, this sounds wrong, this sounds odd, this sounds very stiff. Correct it, and then you can put it on your flashcards and learn it by heart, which helps me a lot more, because learning vocabulary without any context, in my opinion, this is just a waste of time. Don't waste your time on that. Now, next category of book would be a huge grammar book. Look how thick this is. So this is to look up rules and conditions and just, grammar stuff that you are not sure about. Like when you really have a specific question and you want to find out, am I right about this? Am I doing this right? Or, is this colloquial? I'm not really sure if this is a thing in this language. Then you can take a big fat grammar book and look it up. This is more for advanced language learners. I would say, if you're starting B1 and you want to learn your language well, I would recommend using a grammar book just to look up stuff. But if you find a good online resource and that is just like more your thing, well, all the power to you. In another language video, I also recommended small grammar booklets like these. They are just verb tables and rule tables. Like this is a verb table in French. I find this very helpful for beginner learners, like from starting from A1 or from nothing. You can use a verb table. It's really good for learning irregular verbs, just to look it up really fast, or just have it in your backpack. And when you're on the bus and you're bored, again, I think it's better than an app, because an app will always take like 10 or 20 minutes of full concentration for you. And if there is a break, because maybe you have to get off the bus, then you have to start over again because you don't remember where you were. So I think this is kind of more practical. And then last but not least, this is an advanced vocabulary book. Why do I use something like this? Well, first of all, it has, again, a listening comprehension part. It has a CD to play stuff to you, so you will not make as many pronunciation mistakes. This is very systematic. It is ordered by topics, as in food, at the doctor, that kind of thing. It's basically something to use to look up stuff. I prefer this kind of thing over online resources, because when I sit down to study my languages, I just don't want to get lost in the internet. I'm easily distracted and it's just not for me. Books cannot distract you. And even if they do, even if your brain wanders off and you just start flipping pages, you will learn something. You will not learn another thing or watch some meme or some other online crap. You will look at this book and learn a new word. So these are basically all the resources that I can recommend to you, as in types of books you should look for. In my opinion, the most useful of these would be this kind of book, which is like a basic level course, so that you can get is to B2 level. So you should not buy anything that is more than that. Any book that claims they get you from nothing to see something, like it's a scam. And try to find a book that has CDs or something, so you can listen to it and do the listening comprehension exercises religiously. With a book, you always know like where to start, and you can also track your progress, because you can maybe like start a little bullet journal tracker and then say, okay, today I read 5 pages in my language book. You can see how much can you actually achieve in one day. When do you start forgetting stuff? When are you not able to take in any more information? So you can adapt your language learning frequency to that. Okay? Good luck with that. And if you have any questions, post them in the comments. That's it.